What happens when a global legend walks onto a morning show expecting respect, only to find himself under relentless scrutiny? What should have been a routine, feel-good appearance on Good Morning America quietly transformed into one of the most uncomfortable moments in live television. The tension between Jackie Chan and Michael Strahan didn't explode all at once. Built slowly, question by question, until the cameras captured a moment no one was prepared for. A worldwide icon standing up and walking off set, leaving the studio frozen in stunned silence and millions of viewers watching in disbelief. The Good Morning America studio was buzzing with its usual polished energy as Jackie Chan took his seat. He was there to promote his latest project, and producers expected an easy conversation filled with laughter, stunt stories, and nostalgic reflections on a career spanning more than 5 decades. Michael Strahan welcomed him warmly, praising his longevity and dedication, calling it remarkable that Jackie was still performing his own stunts after all these years. Jackie responded with humility and a light joke, mentioning his early training and the many bones he had broken along the way, clearly trying to keep the mood relaxed. But the tone shifted when Strahan leaned forward and reframed the conversation. He questioned whether Jackie's history of injuries crossed the line from dedication into recklessness, and asked if he ever regretted pushing his body so far. Jackie's smile faded slightly as he explained that his work was never careless. To him, every stunt was calculated, every movement precise, and every risk taken in service of authenticity. Injuries, he said, were not proof of irresponsibility, but the cost of commitment to his craft. Instead of easing up, the questioning intensified. Strahan cited criticism from safety experts and stunt coordinators who argued that Jackie's methods set a dangerous example for younger performers. Jackie straightened in his chair, his calm now edged with firmness. He clarified that he had trained his entire life for this work and never encouraged others to imitate him without proper preparation. He spoke about discipline, mentorship, and the lack of safety regulations early in his career, emphasizing that dedication, not recklessness, was the lesson he hoped people took from his journey. The atmosphere in the studio noticeably changed. What began as a celebratory interview now felt like an interrogation. Strahan shifted topics again, bringing up controversy surrounding Jackie's older films and claims that some of them contained stereotypes that hadn't aged well. Jackie paused before responding, choosing his words carefully. He acknowledged that films are products of their time and insisted the intention was always to entertain and bring joy, never to harm. He pointed to his lifelong efforts to bridge cultures and bring Eastern and Western cinema together, when Strahan countered by saying intention doesn't erase impact. Jackie's frustration became harder to conceal. He admitted he cared deeply about how people felt, but stressed the importance of context. He spoke passionately about representing Chinese culture with pride, acknowledging imperfections while standing by the broader purpose of his work. The respect he expected, however, felt increasingly absent. Then came the final shift to question that changed everything. Strahan pivoted toward Jackie's political views, particularly his outspoken comments on China and Hong Kong, noting that critics accused him of supporting authoritarian policies. The room tightened. Jackie's expression hardened, and in that moment, it became clear the conversation had crossed from discussion into confrontations, setting the stage for the dramatic walk-off that would soon follow. How do you reconcile being such a beloved global figure while also making political statements that many people find troubling? The question landed like a hammer. The studio seemed to hold its breath. Jackie Chan's jaw tightened, and for the first time since the interview began, a flash of unfiltered anger crossed his face. He leaned forward slightly, his voice controlled but sharp, making it clear a line had been crossed. He said he came to the show to talk about his work, about cinema, about entertaining people not to be put on trial for his personal beliefs or lectured about politics on live television. Michael Strahan pushed back calmly, insisting he wasn't lecturing, only asking questions many viewers wanted answered. Jackie was a public figure, he said, and with influence came responsibility. Jackie's response was immediate and firm. There was a difference, he argued, between asking someone to explain their views and accusing them before they even had a chance to speak. His accent thickened slightly as his frustration rose. He pointed out that from the very beginning, the interview had focused on questioning his professionalism, his safety practices, his films, and now his personal beliefs. This wasn't a conversation. Jackie said bluntly it was an ambush. The studio fell into complete silence. Michael maintained his composure, but his tone hardened as he replied that these were legitimate questions. And if Jackie couldn't handle being asked about his career and public statements, perhaps he shouldn't be doing interviews at all. The words hung heavy in the air. Jackie stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly and deliberately, he reached up and removed his microphone. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. "Maybe I shouldn't be doing interviews, at least not ones where I'm treated with this level of disrespect." Strahan tried to soften the moment, suggesting Jackie was being oversensitive and that it was just a conversation. But Jackie stood up, carefully placing the microphone on the chair. "A real conversation," he said, "requires mutual respect." This, he explained, had felt like an attack from the moment he sat down. After thousands of interviews over a lifetime, he knew the difference between a tough interview and a disrespectful one, and a diss crossed that line as the cameras continued rolling. Jackie turned toward the exit, his movements calm and controlled despite the anger clearly simmering beneath the surface. Strahan called after him, asking him to wait and talk it through, but Jackie didn't turn around. The crew froze, unsure whether to cut away, while the audience watched in stunned silence as one of the world's biggest stars walked off a live television set. A producer rushed toward Jackie near the edge of the stage, whispering urgently and urging him to return for a break and a reset. For a brief moment, Jackie's expression softened. He could see she was simply trying to do her job. But when he glanced back at Strahan approaching them, his resolve hardened again. The problem, he said, wasn't just the questions, it was the tone and the assumptions behind them. He had worked too hard for too many years to be disrespected on live television. Strahan raised his hands in a placating gesture, explaining that his job was to ask tough questions and that viewers expected more than soft interviews. Jackie finally turned to face him directly. There was a clear difference, he said, between tough questions and hostile ones. A tough question invites honesty and vulnerability. What he had faced instead were questions designed to create conflict, to generate controversy, and to make him look bad for ratings. The accusation visibly rattled Strahan. For the first time, cracks appeared in his usually unshakable composure. He insisted there was no intention to attack and suggested these were questions people genuinely wanted answered. Jackie's reply was sharp and unwavering. Those people could ask him anywhere else, he said, but when he came on this show, gave his time, and sat in that chair, he expected basic respect. Instead, he had been treated like a defendant in a courtroom. The audience was completely riveted. Phones were already lighting up. Clips were already spreading. And in that moment, was clear this was no longer just an interview, it was a live television confrontation that would echo far beyond the studio. This was no longer the polished, carefully managed celebrity interview viewers expected. What was unfolding was raw, unscripted conflict playing out in real time on live television. Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos appeared at the edge of the set, clearly alerted and quietly assessing whether they should step in. Michael Strahan ran a hand over his head in visible frustration before finally conceding that something had gone wrong. He acknowledged there had been a miscommunication about the direction of the interview, admitted that Jackie deserved respect, and offered an apology, asking him to sit back down and start over with a different tone, a different approach, and a renewed focus on Jackie's legacy and new projects. Jackie studied Strahan's face carefully, searching for sincerity. The apology was there, but it felt rehearsed, more like damage control than genuine remorse. He asked how many guests had sat in that same chair and felt exactly as he did in that moment. He suspected he wasn't the first, and unless something changed, he wouldn't be the last. Strahan pushed back weakly, insisting it wasn't fair to judge his entire career based on one interview that had gone sideways. Jackie countered calmly but firmly, suggesting that most guests probably stayed quiet, smiled through the discomfort, and moved on because they needed the publicity. He, however, was at a stage in his career where he no longer had to tolerate that treatment. Robin Roberts stepped forward then, her voice calm and diplomatic. She spoke directly to Jackie, expressing the show's deep respect for his career and gently encouraging him to stay so the conversation could continue with a more positive focus. Jackie's expression softened. He thanked her sincerely, acknowledging her effort. But he made it clear the damage had already been done. He had arrived in good faith, ready for a positive exchange, and instead found himself defending his integrity from the very first. Questioned something he couldn't simply brush aside. Strahan, visibly irritated that Jackie was responding more warmly to Robin, cut in sharply. He accused Jackie of walking out and leaving millions of viewers hanging simply because he didn't like the questions, calling it unprofessional. The studio went silent. Even Robin looked stunned. Jackie's eyes narrowed, and when he spoke, his voice was icy. He explained that professionalism meant researching a guest, understanding them, and conducting an interview that served both the audience and the person sitting in the chair. What Strahan had done, Jackie said, was chase a viral moment at his expense. Now that it wasn't going as planned, he was trying to shift the blame. The accusation landed hard. Strahan's face flushed, and the tension threatened to escalate further until George Stephanopoulos stepped closer, placing a hand on Strahan's shoulder and suggesting they take a break. He asked Jackie for just a few minutes to reset, but Jackie shook his head. He explained that after more than 50 years in the industry, after enduring disrespect from directors, producers, and colleagues, he wasn't about to let someone tear down his career on live television for ratings or clicks. Strahan, his tone now dripping with sarcasm, questioned whether the great Jackie Chan couldn't handle a few tough questions. He invoked Jackie's history of broken bones and physical sacrifice, challenging where that toughness had gone. The comparison lit a fuse. Jackie's hands clenched into fists as he responded that physical toughness had nothing to do with allowing oneself to be disrespected. He spoke of the countless risks he had taken out of love for his craft, making it clear that dignity toughness was what was at stake now. And that dignity was not something he was willing to sacrifice to salvage an interview. A producer tried one last time, pleading with him and reminding him that the audience loved him. Jackie finally turned to face the crowd. He saw the confusion, the shock, and the quiet support in their faces. Taking a breath, he apologized to them directly for not being able to talk about his new film, for the interview not becoming what everyone hoped. But he also explained that sometimes standing up for yourself is necessary, even when it's uncomfortable and public. Being real with his fans, he said, meant not pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Then, Jackie turned back to Michael Strahan one final time. He wished him well and said he hoped that someday Michael would understand why this moment happened. And with that, he made his choice clear. He was done. With those final words, Jackie Chan turned and walked toward the exit with the same controlled grace he brought to his most carefully choreographed fight scenes. Every step was deliberate, measured, and a master of his craft, asserting control one last time, even as chaos swirled around him. Michael Strahan stood frozen, watching Jackie leave, before calling out after him. He admitted he may have come on too hard, but argued that the world had changed. That people now demanded accountability and answers, even from legends. Jackie stopped at the door, his hand resting on the handle. Without turning around, his voice carried clearly across the studio as he explained that he had been accountable his entire life to his audiences, his crews, and everyone who trusted him. But accountability, he said, was not the same as humiliation. What Strahan wanted was contrition for the cameras. Not understanding, and that was theater, not truth. Strahan fired back, insisting that this was journalism. That public figures didn't get to choose which parts of their lives were examined. Jackie finally turned around, and what replaced his anger was something closer to disappointment. Journalism, he said, was about seeking truth and context, not prosecution. Strahan had already decided Jackie was guilty before the interview even began, crafting questions to confirm a narrative rather than discover anything new. Robin Roberts stepped in again, urging both men to pause and breathe, hoping professionalism might salvage the moment. Jackie acknowledged her kindness, but explained that some bridges burn because they were built on faulty foundations. This interview, he said, was doomed from the start, not meant to celebrate his work, but to cut him down and prove that even Jackie Chan could be made to look small. Strahan denied that accusation, though his defensiveness betrayed him. He claimed he was simply asking the questions people wanted answered. Jackie corrected him quietly but firmly. Strahan chose the questions, the tone, and the focus on controversy. Those were his choices, just as walking away was Jackie's. George Stephanopoulos stepped in, noting that today's media environment held public figures to harsher standards. Jackie listened respectfully and acknowledged that change was inevitable. He had adapted his entire life, across cultures, languages, and industries. But adaptation did not mean accepting disrespect. Without a baseline of dignity, he said, no conversation was worth having. Strahan then admitted he had come in with an agenda not to destroy Jackie, but to challenge him, believing he was capable of deeper conversations than typical celebrity interviews. Jackie responded calmly that he had faced difficult conversations his entire career with directors, executives, critics, and skeptics who doubted him at every stage. Those conversations, however painful, were rooted in building something better. What happened here was different. These questions were not meant to elevate understanding, they were meant to diminish him. The standoff continued. Cameras rolling, viewers at home transfixed by something unheard of on morning television. Robin made one final attempt, offering a full reset: new questions, new focus, charity work, cultural impact. Jackie declined gently. Sitting back down now, he said, would teach the wrong lesson that disrespect could be erased with a smile and soft questions. That was not a message he was willing to send. Strahan asked quietly if Jackie was really walking out. Jackie confirmed he was and clarified this wasn't about ego or avoiding criticism. It was about knowing one's worth. He reminded viewers that everyone watching had the same right. If someone treats you without respect, in any setting, you are allowed to walk away. You do not owe anyone your dignity. Strahan finally acknowledged him, saying he didn't agree with everything Jackie had said, but that he heard him and apologized for how it ended. Jackie accepted the apology with a single nod. Then he opened the studio door and walked out, leaving behind a stunned audience, a shaken production crew, and a host struggling to process what had just unfolded. In an era of carefully managed celebrity appearances and pre-approved questions, Jackie Chan had done something rare. He chose dignity over publicity, principles over convenience. Whether you agree with his decision or not, there was something undeniably powerful about watching a global icon draw a line and refuse to cross it. Asterisk, so what do you think? Asterisk, was Jackie Chan right to walk off, or should he have stayed and finished the interview? Asterisk, drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe and tell us, where would you draw the line?